Hey everybody, welcome to Story Time with Mr. Hallum. It's our chance to get together and have a story. It's a good time to do that. So, today's a Labor Day. I hope you're enjoying your day off, and remember you'll have school tomorrow unless you're homeschooled, in which case you'll have school today probably, who knows. So today our story is Lucky Beans, and it's written by Becky Bertha, and it's illustrated by Nicole Tadgle. I want to say Tadwell, but that wasn't right. Tadgle. Lucky Beans. Do you like beans? I like beans. We made some yesterday for a barbecue. Tasty. The onions and bacon and beans and barbecue sauce. Yummy. Lucky Beans. Cold wind ripped through Marshall Lohman's old wool jacket. The snow froze his toes right through his hand-me-down boots. He ran up the steps into the steamy kitchen. "What's for dinner, Ma? I'm starving." So you get the feeling it's cold. It's winter. "Get those boots off and hang up your coat," Ma said without looking around, "and I don't want to hear any complaints about dinner." But Marshall had already peeked in the big pot. "Beans? Again? Aw. Ma, can't we ever have anything else?" "Yes, it's beans again, and we're lucky to have them. So go get washed on the double and then set the table." Marshall didn't feel so lucky. The elbows of his jacket were worn almost all the way through. Dad had been out of work for months, and there was no money. The house was crowded since Aunt Minnie and Uncle Matt moved in. Now Marshall had to share a room with his little brother and sister, Tommy and Patsy, and he was starting to hate beans. I'm going to take the cover off. It's so much easier to read without the cover on. On the way to school the next morning, Marshall and Tommy trudged past Kaplan's furniture store. Whenever Marshall helped Ma carry groceries home, she would stop and look at the shining sewing machine in the window. Only $23.95, the sign had said. That was $23.95 that Ma would never have. Today, alongside the sewing machine, was the biggest jar of beans he had ever seen. There was a different sign. "How many beans are in this jar? Win this brand new sewing machine." "How many beans they got in there, Marshall?" Tommy pulled on Marshall's sleeve. "100? 1,000? "How should I know?" Marshall answered. But he was thinking, "I know somebody who would know." On the way home, Marshall looked through the store window again. Ladies were writing on little cards of paper and pushing them through a slot into a big box. That night, after Ma checked his homework, Marshall told her about the contest. The next day, when Marshall and Tommy got home, Ma said, "I went to the furniture store today." She was cooking beans again. "Did you enter the contest?" "Not so fast. I need a little more time to chew it over." Aren't you going to complain about having beans? Ma joked. Marshall shook his head. I figured the more you know about beans, the better. Excuse me. That night's homework was a page of arithmetic problems. How many cups are in a pint? Marshall knew the answer. 2. How many pints are in a quart? Ma was looking over his shoulder. Boy, you don't know how many pints fit in a quart? She asked. Go down to the cellar and fetch me an empty pint jar. In the cellar, Ma kept food she had canned from Dad's garden. There were more empty jars than full ones. Last winter, when Ma sent them to fetch something, he and Tommy would snitch a pickle from the big crock at the foot of the stairs. Now the pickle crock was empty too. Ma showed him how to fill up a small pint jar with water and pour it into an empty quart milk bottle to measure it. 2 pints filled the quart, so 4 cups made a quart. That's a really good way to do homework, is to actually do it. How many pints does it take to fill the quart? Oh, how many cups are in this? Because the more, when you do it and you actually physically hold it, it helps register in your brain, helps make it easier to know. I'm a big fan of that. After school the next day, Marshall saw a new sign in Mr. Kaplan's window. Only 2 days left to make your guess. Kids were standing around. Our ma's going to win the sewing machine, Tommy piped up. Your ma, Agnes, a girl in Marshall's class, whirled around to face Tommy. They won't let your mama win. Only white ladies can win contests. Tommy shouted back, That's not true. Then he turned to Marshall. Is it? Marshall grabbed his brother's hand and marched into the store. Come on, Tommy, we're going to find out. Well, young man, what can I do for you? Mr. Kaplan said to Marshall. I have a question about the sewing machine contest rules. Can anybody win, or can only white ladies win? Mr. Kaplan took off his glasses and looked Marshall in the eye. Anybody can win the contest, he said. This is America. It will be fair. When Marshall and Tommy got home, Ma was cooking potatoes and cabbage. But 5 sacks of beans sat on the kitchen table. Where'd all those beans come from? Marshall asked. Oh, the church ladies and neighbors. After dinner, I want you boys to help me count them. But run down to the cellar now, Marshall, and fetch me a pint jar of tomatoes. Out of habit, Marshall checked the pickle crock before starting back upstairs. Of course, it was still empty. But Marshall stopped in his tracks. The pickle crock, he was sure of it, was the same size as that big jar of beans. They could count how many beans fit into the pickle crock. Then Ma would know the right number. After dinner, Dad lugged the pickle crock up to the kitchen. They all crowded around, counting beans from the sacks and dumping them into the crock. The last bean was number 4,341, but the 4,341 beans didn't fill much of the crock. Ma peered in. "Well," she said, "the sign did say guess. I reckon that's what we'll have to do." Then Marshall remembered something from school. His class was finished with measuring, and now they were learning estimating. "It's better than guessing," Miss Dover had said. "Use what you already know to solve the problem." Marshall said, "Ma, I know. Let's count how many beans fit in a quart jar and how many quarts of water fill up the crock. Then we can multiply beans times quarts to estimate the number of beans." Ma grinned at him. "Now you're cooking with gas," she said. When they were finished counting and multiplying, they had the number Ma thought was right: 53,280 beans. On Saturday morning, Mr. Kaplan's furniture store was full of people. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Kaplan announced, "we had 327 entries, and today we have a winner. First, let's reveal how many beans are in the jar." He unscrewed the lid and showed the number marked inside: 53,293. Marshall heard gasps and whistles. "Holy mackerel," somebody said. Marshall's heart was thumping hard. Ma's guess was so close. Was she going to win? So exciting. Mr. Kaplan went on. "One guess was off by only 13 beans, and the winner, who guessed 53,280, is Miss Josephine Lohman from 7234 Monticello Street." "That's you, Ma!" Marshall threw his arms around his mother's waist. "Congratulations, Miss Lohman." Mr. Kaplan shook Ma's hand. After Ma won the sewing machine, everything got a little better. Ma was sewing up a storm and getting paid for it, too. Dad got part-time work helping Mr. Kaplan with deliveries. The only thing that wasn't so good was the other prize Ma had won. That jar of beans seemed even bigger in Ma's kitchen than it had been in Mr. Kaplan's store. To Marshall, it looked like a lifetime supply. Look at his face. That's the kind of face I'd make if I want a lifetime supply of corn. I'd be like, that was funny. All right. Lucky beans. What a fun story. I like the math in it too. It's always good to use math. Math's very helpful. It can help you figure out things. And beans are delicious. Just know that. Thank you guys for tuning in. You have a great rest of the week. And I will look forward to seeing you next time on Storytime with Mr. Hallum.